Hello and congratulations on making a decision to do a 90-day run with us. I'm going to go over our second phase, which is preparation. This is going to take just a little bit because there is some homework that you need to do in this phase to get started and get your 90-day launch going quickly. So let me just jump right into it. Again, I just want to, you know, congratulate everybody on joining us for this 90-day run. We you've decided, right? You're all in now, and we're going to talk about the second phase of this, which is preparation. In this, it's always better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And that's why it's key when you do a 90-day run like this, you got to have some things in place. You got to know what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be saying, who you're going to be contacting. And it's a kind of a little system here, and this thing works. So I just want to run through it. My story back in the day when I joined the industry of network marketing, I didn't know anything. I seen all these people that were walking across stage, and I wanted to go up there. And it really, a turning point in my business was a 90-day run. So I just encourage you to stick with this, go through this system. You may fail a little bit here and there, but it's okay. Just get back up and continue to do some things. So, anyway, preparation. All right. The very first thing you have to do is have a strong business plan. Okay. So you got to decide what you want out of this 90-day run for you. How many people do you want to have? Let's look at what that's going to create in volume and, how much time you're going to be willing to put in it. So you got to have a strong business plan because when you start sharing that, that's when you're going to catch people's interest. Learn how to tell your story. Part of your story is be sharing the business plan. This is how it was, but this is how it is now, right? I'm doing a 90-day run. I want you to be part of it. So we're going to teach you some of that, but just learn how to tell your story. And what is it that you want during this 90-day run? That's very, very important. You can't just raise your hand and say, I want to do a 90-day run, you know, and not go after something. What is it that you want to go after? Because we're going to start putting people's goals up in front of everybody. This group that is joining, we're going to hold each other accountable, and we're going to grow as a team and as a community. You are leaders. That's why you have to have a business plan, and you're going to start bringing on new people. And we got to have some type of system that's going to work. So start sharing that with people. My goal, this was my goal. All right. My goal is I want to do a 9-day run and put 1,000 people in. Here's why, because it's going to generate $150,000. It's $80,000 in gold pay. And that 15 points, that's 15,000 in reoccurring volume. I know that will grow into this by the end of December. So my goal, my overall goal is 7,000 people the month of, the year of 2026, new people. All right. Because that generates $1,050,000, $560,000 in gold pay, and it's a reoccurring volume of 105,000. Those are all basic numbers, but that's kind of my plan. We may hit it, we may not hit it all the way, but we're going to be closer than we were. All right. So in preparation, you got to learn some skills. I'm going to give you 2 sets of skills in groups of 3s. Okay. Because get a foundation of these skills in place so that you can effectively run in your 90 days. That's the key thing. You got to become the person that you need to be before you roll out this 90 days. And you got to figure out what that business plan is. And we're going to talk about some of those skills because there are 3 different skills in part 1, and there's 3 different skills in part 2. Presentation is key. We're going to talk about that. Recruiting, we're going to talk about that. And selling, we're going to talk about that. So let's just get right into presentation. You got to know how to tell your story because stories are what sell. Okay. Facts tell, stories sell. And you got to be, we talked about last week, you got to be a gatherer of these stories, know how to tell yours and know how to tell somebody else's. When you're telling your story, you got to speak from the heart, right? And speak to the heart, because if I would have just said, hey, I was going to quit my job and I want to, do this, that doesn't really work. The reason that I wanted to do something different is I had a job that was taking me away from my family. It killed me because I would miss my family's events. I hated it. I'd be at work. They'd be going to a football game, going to a basketball game, going to a golf tournament. I hated it. That's why I wanted something different. I decided to make a 90-day run. So, speak to the heart when you're trying to sell. Don't sell to the facts. That's key. Learn how to effectively tell your stories and tell other people's stories. Very, very key points. Another thing in the presentation is, how are you going to do these presentations? I'm going to give you a lot of different options here, and you got to have a lot of different, and you got to know this. All right. So how are you going to do a phone presentation? Okay. You need to know that. How are you going to do a one-on-one Zoom? How are you going to do a small group presentation? How are you going to do a presentation over coffee, over lunch, in a living room, in person, using technology, online, Zooms, WebEx, you know, using the hub link? How are you going to do a presentation for other people? We got to know some of these things, because you're going to learn different links of presentations and know when to use them. Can you do an opportunity presentation in 5 minutes for one over the phone? Can you do one in 10 over coffee? 15 if you're at lunch with somebody? 30 minutes if you're in the living room? These are all different presentations, and we're going to help you with the tools. They're already in place, but you just got to put some of this stuff together and figure out what it is that you're going to do before we launch. Okay. And then ask yourself, could you do a 45-minute group presentation with more details, answering some of the questions that might have come, or maybe some of the objections? That's what is fun about this. So remember, there is a time commitment to this. You got to decide. You've already made the commitment that, hey, I'm all in. All right. You got to decide if I'm going to be full-time or if I'm going to be part-time. You got to decide how many hours a day you can commit. Is it 2 hours? That would be kind of part-time. All right. Mid time would be 4 hours. And then full-time is 8 hours or plus. There's a couple of days that I already know I'm going to have some 16-hour days. All right. You may not be able to do that, but that's going all in. Think about what it means to go all in. Do all that you can do to get this thing going. So involve your family. We're going to do this 90 days. And I got to share at this point, when you do these, it is exhausting. Okay. You got to take a little bit of time and spend with your family, but you also got to schedule that. You also got to let them know that, hey, we might not be able to go out to movies on Friday night for a little bit. Over this 90-day period, you're going to have to give some things up, because you're trying to, squeeze all the spare time that's in your life to do this run. And when you can work those hours on a daily basis. So you need skills. The second set of skills is retention, duplication, and leadership. Okay? Retention, duplication, and leadership. The first ones were presentation, right? Recruiting and selling, retention, duplication, and leadership. So um, here's kind of a narrow thing. This is your homework that you need to have done. Have a business plan. Be able to tell that to me. I'm going to ask for it later. All right. You need some skills, right? What's your presentation going to look like? Recruiting, selling, this is all coming together. Are you going to work part-time, full-time? How many hours can you commit to? Involve your family. And then the second set of 3 skills, you got to learn retention, duplication, and leadership. You don't need that one, until maybe the middle or the end of this 90-day run, but you really need that presentation, recruiting, and selling before you even start. So those are the 5 basic areas that I need you to do your homework. I appreciate all of you that have committed. And again, if you're watching this video, and you are all in, make sure you're receiving the emails. Okay, if you're not receiving emails, send an email is Curtis Carey Harland at gmail.com. Curtis Carrie, Carrie, Harland, Harland, at gmail.com. And make sure you're getting these emails because this is how we're going to communicate over this 90 days. We are just getting started. You know, we got a lot of work to do, and you need to make sure that you're part of what we're doing because we're scheduling calls. You know, the next call's already been scheduled. So if you want to be part of this, make sure you email us and let us know. All right. So I appreciate it. This is phase 2 preparation. Have a great and blessed day.